You can see the dictionary and thesaurus and the DVD tapes that I've been using to help me as oops, wrong ones here, Homodotatsu, as I work on the subtitles for Homodotatsu. This is a lot of work, but this means a lot to me. This is about my ancestors. I've asked my friend Jane Agnew to start a YouTube channel that will feature my videos of Homodotatsu with English subtitles, a work in progress. I'll have a link to that channel underneath this video. I found some valuable research as I work on my book, Nirvana, Oshu Fujiwara Dynasty. I'm truly honored to being part of a project to put English subtitles for a 35-part Japanese cinema masterpiece miniseries about my Oshu Fujiwara ancestors. And because of taking part in this project, I finally understood the ending to episode 35, and tears streamed down my face as I viewed it. The last video of part 2, episode 23, I believe, is also a real tearjerker. Even though I couldn't understand the Japanese, I understood enough to cry. This is great cinema, a historical drama based on real history. You can't buy this anywhere now. So our project is to get this out to the world as a gift to those who love inspiring true stories. It's a family saga about an amazing royal family, my ancestors, and I plan to write a nonfiction novel based on this, and we'll use the dialogue from the miniseries, but we'll go into the thoughts of Fujiwara Yasuhira, who I'm descended from. So basically, I'm using the miniseries as an outline, and after watching it, you'll read the book to go deeper into the characters' hearts. It's a big job to do this, and I'm working with an international team to get this done. If anybody's fluent in Japanese and English and you want to help us with translation for this, contact Avalok at Asian Drama Wiki, and I'll have a link for that underneath this video. My main job is to do spell check and grammar check for the translation because it's kind of choppy. The translator's good, but he's not a native English speaker, and I'm refining his translation to make the English totally understandable to us native English speakers. My skills as a writer come in handy for this job. I also transcribe what we do have in hard subs, you know, like this right here, which I got from my old VHS tapes, and I use my English and typing skills to ensure that I transcribe accurately. But we don't have hard subs for the entire series, and we need translators. I'm using Subtitle Edit to do this so that Avalok, who makes the final SRT subtitle files, can use my subtitle files and edit them, hopefully making his work easier. I will say this much, that even though I can't speak Japanese, I know enough about this story to help me to transcribe well, not losing the character's voice, and yet translating his Japanese into English. I transform broken English from the translator into something that sounds like the English of a native speaker. My goal is to create subtitles that don't distract away from the story as the viewer watches, which is easier said than done. This is a lot of work. So why am I doing this? Well, the DVD that I do have of Homodotatsu is very poor quality, and it's missing English subtitles for many sections. And I want the public to know this excellent story of my ancestors in its entirety. Our current world is woefully ignorant of history, which, by the way, is repeating itself. My ancestors loved peace, but the greedy around them loved war, and this is their story. Also, history is often rewritten by the victor to make those who died seem insane or evil. My ancestors weren't perfect, but they were heroic. Their story deserves to be told in its entirety and truthfully. History has recast several of my ancestors, like Yasuhira, as evil or insane. This production tells the truth about why they did what they did. Also, it appears there's no way to buy this anymore. The story of my amazing ancestors is about to be lost for posterity. I must tell the world how heroic they were. Perhaps it's the Japanese in me, but my life must honor my ancestors, and this means their story must be told, not buried. What they went through has lessons for us all today. And this is also research for my book Nirvana, Oshu Fujiwara Dynasty, which will be using Homodotatsu But it will be told from the point of view of the last northern Fujiwara leader, Yasuhira. I've had to search high and wide to find English subtitles for this mini-series about my ancestors, the Oshu Fujiwara family, and I could find nothing. This thing is Oscar and Emmy movie quality. And the reason the story of my ancestors is so moving is the main characters are so anti-war, but they're forced into war. And this family's entire story is about those for and against war and how we all get sucked into war, whether we want to or not. My book explores the forces that drag us to war, how we get sucked up into this, and the deadly consequences. In many ways, it's the story of our time and all times. Why do men desire war? That's the story question, and one that I'll strive to answer in my book about my ancestors. Basically, my ancestors had to choose between slavery and war, and this is their story and what happened to them. They could lose their identity and honor, or they could assimilate into the larger, more evil society. The hard choices they made and the price they paid for it is what my book will be all about, and basically what Homer Tatsu is all about. It's a fascinating exploration of the role that cultural influences and intolerance of those who are different play in war, and how evil disguises itself as moral and good in order to con people into accepting war as the answer. Though the story's very Japanese, it has a universal theme of good versus evil, and the disguises that evil takes to fool us into believing it's good. Told within the context of Japanese culture, the story reveals the moral fabrics evil people weave to justify war as the only answer against those who won't conform to a larger, more evil society. And as I write this, the story's going to be dialogue heavy, and I'll strive to write it from a cinematic viewpoint, using strong, detailed description with a heavy show, don't tell writing style. My goal will be to bear the hearts of my characters on the page. And I have a link for a page that I created that gives a brief history of the Oshu Fujiwara family and my connections to them. Unfortunately, Homeda Tatsu does not appear to be available for sale anywhere anymore. But I will have a link where you can view the entire series in Japanese at the web page that I created for this. You can get horrible English subtitles watching the Japanese series on YouTube by going to CC and then settings in the lower right of the video, but they're a horrible translation. Japanese doesn't work well on this thing, Japanese translation. I searched high and wide for English subtitles for Homer Tatsu and couldn't find it anywhere except for through Avalok at Asian Drama Wiki. It's like looking for gold that somebody might have accidentally dropped on the street. You can't find English anywhere about this. It's such a shame because Homer Tatsu is a masterpiece. And I happen to have English subtitles on DVDs, copies from an old Homer Tatsu video cassette from the 1990s Hawaii for videos 26 to 30 and 33 to 35, which I've already put English subtitles to. And you can look at that on my new YouTube channel that Jane's doing for me. My mother gave this to me in the 1990s. How little did I realize at the time that this would become as rare as finding gold on the streets in 2019. Such a rarity deserves to become a book in English, my current project. So learning as I go, I'm becoming quite good at putting English subtitles on this Japanese masterpiece. As far as I know, the only place where you can get Homer Tatsu with English subtitles is me and Avalok at Asian Drama Wiki. My book will be incorporating much of what's in Homer Tatsu because it's such an excellent source about my Oshu Fujiwara ancestors. Jesus says they all went to heaven and that I'll enjoy conversing with them when I get there. The Homer Tatsu 35-part series is divided into 3 sections. The first 12 videos detail the history of the Abe family, who were a Mishi, from which the Oshu Fujiwara family came. This is a fascinating exploration of how love and war are tied together and how this caused the downfall of the Emishi in Japan so that they became totally subjugated to central Japan. Anyways, the second part of Homer Tatsu, videos 13 to 23, goes into the history of Fujiwara Kiyohira, who basically started the Oshu Fujiwara dynasty. It was a rough start, so it's an interesting story. The last third of Homer Tatsu, videos 23 to 24 to 35. Covers the history of the families involved at the end of the Oshu Fujiwara dynasty and how Yoshitsune, a legendary Japanese warrior, played a role in this. And many think Yoshitsune may have become the Genghis Khan. I have a lot of this in English subtitles on horrible quality because the VHS that I got it from was very poor quality, and I'm going to be incorporating this into my book. This family has a Oshu Fujiwara family has a fascinating story. They were passionate, very devout Buddhists, and their story really touches your heart. Their devotion to their family and their ancestors who worshiped honor above all is a story about love, faith, and honor that transcends time. It's about coming from behind and climbing mountains, and I'm going to try to put this voice into my book. And this is why I'm determined to write a book in English about this amazing family and their ties to me. My goal is to put English subtitles into my most important research source for my book, which is Homura Tatsu, the miniseries, so that readers can experience the story in movie form. They can then go to my book to understand better the hearts of those they've just watched. Since I'm descended from this family, I understand them being very much like them in many ways. I feel I'm a blend between Fujiwara Hidehira and Yasuhira. What's interesting about Yasuhira is he was descended from Vladimir the Great's children, Boris and Gleb, who died in Russia for the same reasons that Yasuhira died in Japan. They were so devoted to their faith that they'd rather die than do war. So they surrendered their right to the throne, only to be murdered by their jealous half-brother, who didn't trust them and saw them as rivals for the throne. They surrendered their right to the throne without a fight and died as martyrs in order to prevent war and bloodshed in Russia, becoming saints in the Russian Orthodox Church. It's funny how Yasuhira is so much like his ancestors Boris and Gleb and did the same thing in Japan about 100 years later. It shows that genes really play a role in who we are. What's interesting is that these relatives of Boris and Gleb who went to Japan came from the same gene pool that produced Catherine the Great, which is why I'm 60% Catherine the Great. The royal family I'm descended from cared more about honor than riches or fame, and I inherited this trait from them. I don't think the writer for Homura Tatsu was aware that the Oshu Fujiwara family came from Vladimir the Great's children in Russia. This was kept a big secret so that only the emishi in Japan knew this. Boris and Gleb's relatives and children had to escape Russia, or they'd suffer the same fate as Boris and Gleb, being considered rivals for the throne. They ended up in Japan and ironically became royals in Japan, suffering the same fate that they tried to escape from in Russia. In the end, they were forced to become full emishi and to disguise themselves as emishi to survive, and Homura Tatsu their story. And I believe the Ainu clan, which came out of the Emishi clan, are all the Oshu Fujiwara descendants who adopted a different identity in order to survive. I suspect that most of the Ainu in Japan are descended from the Oshu Fujiwara family. My mother has strong Ainu blood, which explains why, though she's Japanese, I, her daughter, don't look Japanese. The Ainu are a Caucasian-looking race in Japan. Though Homura Tatsu tells my ancestors' story totally from a Japanese and not a Russian perspective, my book will have a Russian as well as a Japanese perspective, showing how the spirit of Boris and Gleb and of Catherine the Great lives on in the Ainu, the descendants of Boris and Gleb, and the Oshu Fujiwara family. So check out this new YouTube channel, which I've asked Jane to do for me. You say, why aren't you doing it? Well, the channel might get taken down for copyright. But then since you can't buy Homura Tatsu anywhere, maybe it won't get taken down for copyright. You can't buy it. I looked. You used to be able to buy it for like $200 2 or 3 years ago. Now it's not available for sale anywhere. So I've also got a link to a web page about my project, and believe me, I'm learning as I go. This has been a lot of work, and it's probably going to take me a while, maybe at least 6 months to a year, maybe, before we get all the English subtitles on everything.